Seamless Xtra as we continue to explore the latest trends and innovations in the world of digital commerce.
Hi Amber, welcome to Seamless Extra. It's a pleasure to have you on our platform today.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Great, great. And obviously, Amber, we've met, at Seamless Middle East in Dubai. But before we start our discussion, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Perfect. Hi, everyone. It's great to be talking to you. My name is Amber Clifford, and I am essentially an international operator, strategist, connector that I run in my own agency, Murray Consulting, and I've started this after almost 10 years with Disney Plus and Uber Eats. There, I did strategy and launch and operations and kind of helped both brands figure out where they should go internationally. So, taking a US company and entering new markets from all facets of the business.
Amazing, great background. And based on what you've said, obviously the theme of today's discussion is international expansion and growth strategies, and hopefully everything that our audience need to know about it. Now diving straight into the first question, as a brand who wants to enter a new market, I'm sure that there are a lot of things to consider. From, evaluating the market itself, the competition, choosing the right partners. It's a big discussion. What are your main advice on how to successfully enter a new market?
Yeah, I think it's a question I get a lot with clients. It's something I'm constantly thinking about. And especially now where being global is so integral in being a business and everybody wants to go global. I think some of the main things that I think of is what is your launch narrative? And so, what I say that first is stepping back into what is your business narrative? And by that, I mean, there are so many reasons you could want to expand. Some people want to expand for to be acquired. Some people want to expand to be first to market. Some people want to expand to be a really regional expert, etc. There's so many things. You first need to get that pinpointed down well, so then you can actually make your plan with that goal in mind, which may not be the same goal as what you've seen Uber do or what you've seen Disney Plus do, and really being honest with your business and yourself. And from there, I think about kind of how did I end up in this position and why do people think about with my business all the time? Why do people tap my
Mhm.
agency? And I think really it's knowing how to sit in between business and culture. And the two are, you can't have one without the other when you're going to a new place. So by that, I mean, it's without question, you have to have best in chop business, acumen. You have to understand the home base, which, is wherever your company's founded and where your narrative started. You have to understand that. And also, you have to be able to go beyond that and marry the needs of the new market because we're here to serve, obviously, the consumers. So you have to marry the needs of the new market, which may come in the form that you don't actually understand
Mhm.
well because it's a different culture. It may come in a form that, goes beyond your, which we all have our natural biases, our natural understanding of business. So you really have to be able to sit in the middle and connect those dots. And so I don't think one is more important than the other when looking to go abroad. I think you need best in class business chops and best in class cultural competency and intelligence and the ability to translate business into culture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, in Seamless as well, a big buzzword that we always use is localization and adapting to the
Totally.
cultural norm. I think it's very, it's easy to be like, okay, like this market is gonna love my product, but then how do you actually sell to that market? So they, especially in the Middle East, where it's more culturally sensitive, that where the audience will feel like, okay, there's an international brand, but it's not just a foreign brand. It's actually a brand that has also adapted to the cultural norm.
Totally.
I don't know whether maybe one of the techniques that, like what you said there, maybe you just don't know how culturally sensitive they are. And maybe one of the factors that you can do to help is choosing the right partners within the new market that you want to enter. So you understand how everything works and what the audience wants. When you're choosing your partner, how what's the best way of doing this to make sure that, the collaboration is successful and then all the campaigns that you're going to do are correct? How do you choose the right partners?
Totally. Yeah, I think taking a high level look at that question, I think localization is absolutely imperative. And I think one thing um, that's super important and working, and I'll get to the partner part, but working with partners is still kind of that translator in the sense that you can work with local partners, and they are the experts on
Mm.
their region, their area, their city, whatever the
The
scope is.
territory.
Right? They're the experts. They know it deep and well. And what I found is generally working with partners, there's a gap in, or can be a gap in, then understanding how to make that work into the larger business.
Mhm.
So oftentimes with working in partners, there's a lot of local partners. It's an ask for a lot of, um, super niche like features, or super niche, like super local adjustments, which as a global business, you would love to do all of those, but you actually make trade-offs and say, scale, what are we gonna scale, and what are we gonna
Mm.
invest in to make customizable? And that's a constant question. So you absolutely need your local partners, and you absolutely need HQ. And as the launcher, you have to sit in the middle and again, connect those dots and say, okay, HQ probably wants to scale too much and it's not going to translate well.
Mm.
Partner may have a tendency to go too deep. And for the investment, we can't go that deep because we just don't have the ability, since we're global. So I think, again, still kind of staying in the middle of those two when you're assessing partners, really thinking of like, if you are, or if you're working with, again, like, when I get involved, it's, okay, I know that I can translate the two, so let me find the best expert. So I'm looking for true expertise. I want someone that knows that place like the back of their hand, has tried and true experience in making products work. And I actually don't care as much if they've done it on a global scale,
Yeah.
because I consider that my job. My job is to translate the nuances from X market and make them work with the global strategy. And so, yeah, complete experts, just a tried and true track record, relationships. I'm a big in-person person. I like to
Yeah.
have the conversation face to face if I can. The irony of us on Zoom, but I like to have the conversation in person. And so I think some of the things I look to evaluate is the partner's pace on par with the way the business is moving.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, like, if we have a tight, crazy deadline and we know that like we are zooming and we have pressures to launch in a good way, but quick, then of course I'm looking for partners that are used to that pace. Experts still is the table stakes, but they're used to the pace. They can get me what I need kind of at that pace and work with my agency well
Yeah,
to.
it's almost having the same value where obviously every like, I'm sure a lot of partners can do a great job, but who can do it efficiently? And like
Yeah.
what you said, it's not about the size of the partner. Like, okay, you can have a partner who's never launched outside that local market, but how they must know the local market really well. Um,
Mhm.
Now based on all of your experience with your consulting company, with Uber Plus and Disney and all of that, what would you say are the common mistakes that brands do when they're entering a market? And yeah, what are the common mistakes and how can they avoid it?
I think a lot of common mistakes that brands make are what I call is building a business on paper.
Mhm.
And you can really build a business and you can market size something out and you can do all of the things that we know uh, should, in theory, or tell one story of if a market makes sense to go to. But that's 40% of the story, like,
Executing it is
or
different.
like, or they build a business, you really build out a business on paper for, let's say, a whole country, and
Hmm.
you evaluate a country and you say, oh my gosh, this is the great country, I want to go here. But the reality is depending, if e-commerce probably touches, the entire span of the country in theory. But if you have an on the ground business that's still, a digital app, but like a marketplace or something, or there's different laws across the different cities, you may not actually be launching in that whole country. but you've
Mm.
done an evaluation for the whole country. You actually may be, if there's different laws that prevent you from easily going to all of the places or all the cities, you may choose, for example, the US, somebody could size out the US and they actually only launch in 3 cities or 3 states.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Oh, but you've done an analysis for the US and it's kind of not, yeah, so it's not as relevant. So I think building out a business on paper definitely is one of the things where people tend to make some mistakes. And then also not having not investing, the time or the resources. So either it's the time, which is you can work with partners, but then getting someone who can understand how to connect the dots, and I think that
Yeah,
that's like, you've got to spend time in the market. And if you don't have the ability to because of timelines, then you need to outsource that, because
yeah,
you have to know this market. And even if if you feel you've done that, I've seen people that feel maybe because they've gone to a region, or companies gone to a region, clients that feel, okay, of course, I've launched in Dubai, I can launch in
mm,
Saudi. No.
different. It's
There's
different.
so many nuances and so many things that you need to evaluate. If you haven't spent the time there, then I think that sure, you can get local partners, but you also, there's no makeup that you can have for being able to translate, again, like I said, the local expertise to a global
Yes,
uh,
yeah.
strategy. And I think that both sides obviously have sometimes can have shortcomings in doing that. And then I will also just say too that I think that there's sometimes yeah, sometimes I think that we make trade-offs.
Mm.
And I think it sometimes can be inconsistent, the trade-offs we make when we're launching. So let's say, I could say that you're gonna love my product and I know it and it's gonna fit the market. But if you don't make the resource investment in the necessities for that market. So let's say I'm speaking in hypotheticals, but let's say in practice, like, I gave this example, I believe, at the Seamless Dubai
Yeah,
conference, but there's certain nuances. Like, let's say if you have an app that goes off, there's an alarm on the app, or there's an app that gives you push reminders, or there's an app, even when you're getting a request, it may ping, things like that. That's very common in marketplaces and in delivery, like courier apps or anything like that. uh One thing I saw that I was just so impressed with, and just like things that you need to know a market for to think about are, when I was in Saudi, I saw there were actually apps that had these features that were programmed to go silent and not allow any sounds to come out of the app 5 times a day during the call to prayer. And it's like, of
yes, yeah,
course,
yeah.
how much does that make sense? Of course, that
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
like, but if you're coming in and you don't understand the market, you may think that that's a small trade-off. Like, oh, I don't necessarily have to do that. That's a nice to have. And, for
It's
me, I probably would
important.
push
Yeah,
back and argue and say that's not. I would say that's the norm in this culture and the respect that needs to be given to enter. And, you know, you may not, and it may not even be intentional. You may not even think, like it is something that's required. But, besides the public opinion, it also can impact your business in the
yeah,
sense of, I may not want to have my exercise app ping at me to get up and work out during this
yeah.
time. And if it keeps doing that, I'm turning it off.
It's
I'm turning it off.
almost it's almost going beyond to the next level. It's like, oh my God, I'm amazing. I can do like a reminder on my app. But it's like, actually, if you know the market, then you would respect that there's certain hours shouldn't really have notification. That's taking it to the next level. And I think it brings back to the point which we discussed before, where the audience will know that you've actually thought of them. That within this app, okay, like you did take the market, the localization, the culture into consideration.
Yeah, totally. And just making sure that you have that, like I said, that you can't do all of those things.
Yeah,
I can't do everything that's locally nuanced, but again, it's that acumen to understand how it fits in a market. And I think, one more thing I will say is that it's why I'm kind of bullish on the fact that I think launch should be temporary, like a temporary team.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in businesses, and I think this is kind of a mistake in my part or a lesson learned, and you trial and error. But in my opinion, it works the best when launch sits with an expert team and
Okay.
is and nimble. And I say that because launch is a moment, but it's
One
a
shot.
fun moment that the whole business loves getting involved. I mean, think about, we gather around for what's latest on the Apple products, and we sit and the whole
Yes,
business.
yeah, there's a buzz around it.
It's exciting, it's energetic, and it has a different feel to it. And everyone wants to get involved. And so you're launching and everyone's thinking in this, we just got to go live, go live, go live. And that's the big win, with a launch. And of course, the, 14-day metrics, 1-month
Of
metrics,
course, yeah.
whatever, those are important, but you're building up to go live. That is such a different profile and mindset than passing the business off for long-term growth. And so I think when you have, like, let's just give it like a head of marketing or something, responsible for launch marketing plus then like campaigns down the road, they're actually activating two very different strategies, because launch marketing more or less is probably going to be, launch of a new, let's say, country, not product. It's probably going to be more or less adapting what has been done to fit, like we said, the local market, to make it make sense. But it is a moment, and you may pull back on some, you may not, depending on your, your launch capability. Sometimes you may not have enough product, or you may have too much you're going to be pulling the strings until you find equilibrium because you're brand new, and thinking in that way is super, I like to say, like, scrappy, not crappy. You don't sacrifice the quality, but you're thinking scrappy.
Yeah.
But as a head of marketing, you're actually should be thinking the next 6 months out and what this market's going to look like.
Yes, yeah.
It could be but launch is urgent. So no matter what you're doing, you need to focus you're going to have to pull attention to this because it's happening. And so I actually think, again, where I like the nimble temporary team, and this is where I think I've seen it excel the most, is when it's a temporary team who liaises, who makes sure they get what they need from the marketing org and from the operations teams and from the various functions within the company. You insert yourself, and, when we work with companies, we insert ourselves, we get it, and then we pass it off, pass off the business once it's in a healthy place. But we get what we need from these folks, but it's a different mindset. And
Different ball game, isn't it? Yeah.
different ballgame. And sometimes I find people, when they focus on launch, everyone gets excited, the product goes live, and then they go, what's our first marketing campaign?
Yeah,
And
so
they're
what do
kind
you do
of
after
around,
that?
what are we doing with operations, and what's the role, and like it is a sigh of relief that you've gotten it over. And then
Yeah, it's almost like keeping up the momentum because you have one shot to launch. And obviously, as people say, first impression lasts. So
yeah,
we've got one shot, and then like what you said, so then what do you do after? I think that's a really good advice that, you can have a separate launch team that just focuses purely on launch, and then you have one that's more for long term for the business.
totally. And I think that is when I found it to be the most successful, when
Okay,
it's
great.
all one. I found some mistakes sometimes can get in, so.
It's perfect, Amber. Obviously, you gave amazing advice there, and I'm sure our audience have learned something new, and hopefully the mistakes not to do as well when they want to launch or enter to a new market. It's a pleasure to have you on our platform, and I will see you again for
Yeah.
Seamless Saturday in Riyadh very soon.
Looking forward, and thank you guys so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Amber.